We now want to take a look at expressions and how we can express them verbally, or how we will find them expressed verbally so that we can easily turn them into a mathematical expression using your basic operations and some variables. The first one we see here, this operation, the most commonly used word to describe that operation is the word plus. So for this particular expression, we could simply say that that is A plus B. We could also say that we're adding, or that A is added to B. We can say that A has been increased by the amount B. And we could also say that A is B greater than some other amount, making sort of a comparison in that particular phrase. And we could say, very commonly we'll say that A is B more than some other value. Now the one word that's probably used most commonly as the math textbooks progress, as you get into higher level math courses, the key word that will be used is the word sum. And when you use the word sum, you're actually implying grouping symbols with that. In other words, to say the sum of A and B, you are implying that there are some parentheses around that. Now our next operation is commonly called subtraction. So you would use the phrase A subtract B to describe that expression. You can say A less B, and you can also say A less than. Now you have to be careful when you say less than. When you use the phrase less than, the order in which you say things gets turned around. We'll look at that more in just a second. We can use the word minus, and we can use the phrase decreased by. Again, decreased by is another commonly used phrase. Again, sort of a classic, most commonly used textbook favorite for that operation is in fact difference. Take enough math, then that'll be the only word you eventually see used. Next operation, commonly called multiply, but we can also say times. We can use specific phrases, not for this particular multiplication problem, but if we say double, that means 2 times some number. If we say, for example, triple, then we specifically mean 3 times some number. And we can also use the word of. Now, of is used specifically when you're dealing with fractions, like half of a number is 1/2 A, and of can also be used with percentages. If you say 10% of a number, that's 0.10 times the number. So of is used with fractions, and it's used with percentages as well. Again, the textbook word, though, to use for multiplication is the word product. Our last operation is commonly referred to as divide or division, but we can also use phrases like half, which means divide by 2, and so on. The textbook word, though, is going to be quotient. So I'll drop down here and pencil that in. But we can also say things like into, like how many times does B go into A, and so on. Now, as we're using these phrases, we have to bear in mind in what order they're used. With addition and with multiplication, the order doesn't matter. Things can be done out of order with these two operations, and it doesn't matter. But with subtraction, order does matter. For example, when we're using the word subtract, we would say A subtract B to get this correct order. If using the word use the phrase less, we would again say A less B, and that would express this again. But using less than, we would typically say B less than A to get the order correct. It's A minus B, and here we would say A decreased by B. And with the phrase with difference, again, write it in the correct order as you originally saw it. With division, when you say divide, you would say A divide, and we often say divide by B. But with the phrase into, we're going to say something to the effect, how many times does B go into A? Again, getting things in a different order. With sum, difference, product, quotient, though, you put the numbers into the problem in the exact order you see them written. All right, one other or a couple other vocabulary things to look at, and that the next one is going to be those symbols right there. You can just out and out say equal, but a lot of times you'll see the word is showing up to tell you when it is time to put in the equal to symbol. For example, if you say the product of 3 and a number, that would be 3 in, or whatever variable we've chosen to use. The product of 3 and a number is, meaning put in the equals, 15. So that's how that expression would be written out. If you were to say the quotient of a number and 5, that would be n over 5 is 30. That means put in the equals, and there's the 30. If you were to say twice the sum of, now that's where you put in your 2, it's multiplication. Sum means grouping symbols, and if you say twice the sum of A and B, that means twice A plus B in parentheses. Yields can also represent the equals, and if you were to say 20, then that's what would go on the other side of the equal to. So these are some of your more common vocabulary words and the way that they are used, so that you can write out your mathematical expressions or equations using the correct notation.